can I please now pass on to Lord David Pryor, without whom we wouldn't be here today. Was it only last week we went to see 2 glass factories in the north, and I don't know whether you're going to make any comments on them, but it was very much appreciated that to see the 2 establishments, of course, Pilkington being the one, and Adrian Curry of the other is standing here as well. Much appreciated. David, may I hand over to you?
Well, thank you very much, Richard. I thought I would just say, well, first I should say that I think my friend from Pilkington said that you produce 7,000 tonnes a week of glass. Well, I cut my teeth in the steel industry, and at Teesside we made 10,000 tonnes a day. And I mean, the extraordinary thing is that there's something about hot metal in steel, or hot silica, I guess, in your industry. There's something about these huge factories that are, once bitten, you can never lose it. I mean, I still love the steel business. When I joined the steel industry in 1980, we made 21 million tonnes a year, I think. Now we're down about 8. We employed 150,000 people, I think. Now it's about 15,000. I mean, these industries have been decimated over the years. British Steel, owned by Tata Steel. I look back over the last 30, 40 years, and what has happened to our you call them smokestack industries, what has happened to them? Because although we think of them as smokestack industries, I mean, actually, they are also the industries of the future. If you take glass, I was just looking, I mean, this bottle, if you can take 80% of the energy cost out of this bottle, if you can make it half the weight, if you can make it twice as strong, this material could be hugely, hugely important. I mean, look at the row about plastics. If this can replace plastics, if glass materials can replace plastics, the size of your industry could multiply 10 times. So how are you going to do that? I mean, Sir Alan talked about, I think, what is probably our most powerful competitive advantage, sustainable competitive advantage in this country, and it is our universities. When John Kenneth Galbraith went to India in 1948 to advise Nehru, the new Prime Minister of India, Nehru said to Galbraith, how do I build a modern economy? And Galbraith said, you found lots of universities, then you wait for 500 years. Now, as someone who went to Cambridge, I would say that, wouldn't I? Of course, you haven't got to wait for 500 years, but you've got to have universities. I think it wasn't me, who said that, the great repository of civilization in the Dark Ages was the monastery. In the Middle Ages, it was the castle. In the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution, it was the factory. Today, it is a university. We have got some of the best universities in the world. I mean, I would think of this, UCL, Imperial, Oxford and Cambridge, King's, but actually, Leeds, Newcastle, Manchester, all the northern powerhouses. But there is Liverpool. There is some fabulous technology out there. And actually how you work, I mean, and also these ivory towers have dissolved, I think. These universities are hungry to do business. I mean, Cambridge, where I was, one always thought of it as being far too posh and grand to want to deal with smokestack industries. Not true. It is not true. And I think there's 2 lessons I learned from universities. Firstly, it is this unique combination of competition and collaboration. There's huge competition between universities, and yet just look at all the Nobel Prizes that are won. They are always won by groups of people from all over the world, universities all over the world. So it is this unique combination of collaboration and competition which drives our universities. And I think Glass Futures, in a way, embodies that. It is trying to bring you together, but also not in any way to undermine the competitive, innovative spirit that your individual companies have. I was very instrumental in drawing up the industrial strategy, and it is true that it is not something talked about in the Dog and Duck, and yet it bloody well ought to be. Every other country in the world has an industrial strategy, whether it's the Belt and Road in China, whether it's Industry 4.0 in Germany, whether it's Society 5.0 in Japan. Of course we need an industrial strategy. Can you imagine a big corporation getting up and saying, we haven't got a strategy? I mean, it's absurd. And government has to have a very big role in that. If you look at the US, this sort of, it's always, the right wing of the Conservative Party always talk about the US as believing in free markets and the like. If you look at, most major new innovative products in the US, they have come out of DARPA or the NIH in the US. Massive amounts of money have gone into basic research in the US. A chap called Vannevar Bush in 1948 wrote Science, the Endless Frontier. He wrote it for Roosevelt. It must have been done in 1946. He'd also been in part of the Manhattan Project, which put science absolutely at the forefront of federal spending. And a very impressive economist now at UCL called, it's it's Italian. Can anyone help me with it? Mazzucato, thank you very much. I mean, she did a sort of deconstruction of the iPhone. All the major technology in the iPhone came out of DARPA and NASA projects. Governments have played a huge role in these great new technologies that have come out of Silicon Valley. And I think the British government have got to do the same. So when people say we must rely upon the market and government should get out of the way, I think we should be very robust in saying that is nonsense. Government have got a huge role to play in working with industry on these sector deals that we're developing. And I hope very much that we can develop a sector deal between the government and between the glass industry. And I suppose, why do I think that it's so important? It is that if we don't get economic growth in this country, if we can't move earnings for ordinary, decent people, ordinary, decent people who are making 10, 12, 15,000 pounds a year, we can't move their earnings, then they're going to lose, and quite rightly, lose confidence in us down here, the establishment. They're going to vote for all kinds of weird and hopeless parties, right-wing parties, Brexit and all the rest of it, because we have not delivered for them. We have got to deliver for people, and that means improving productivity. And that is really the essence of our industrial strategy. How do we grow productivity? How can government help you grow productivity? And then you can pay people better and more, and then we'll have a happier, better society. So thank you very much for coming to this today. Thank you.
Lord David Pryor, thank you very, very much indeed. I have to say, and I keep on saying thanks to particular people for supporting Glass Futures, but we really, really wouldn't be here tonight without David Pryor's enthusiasm. When we first met David, it was just about a year ago in the House of Lords, at which point he was a minister in Bays, and responsible, as you've just heard, for the activities of industry in many ways. And he set out to come up and see us in Sheffield. I mean, he'd heard about the North. He knew it was there. He worked in the North, exactly. He wanted to revisit it. Sadly, there was a general election just at the wrong moment. And the net result was, after the election, David's portfolio had changed, and it was not appropriate for him to continue at that point in directly supporting Glass Futures from Bays. Well, the good news for us was that last November, Lord David Pryor, decided that he would leave government and take up the chairmanship of UCLH in London. That allowed him to actually show his support again for Glass Futures. And I don't want to put words in his mouth and say, therefore, just because Lord Pryor says Glass Futures is a great thing, there's a long uphill task we have ahead of us to achieve our objectives, to create twin hubs, the one we hope in Pilkington, the other we hope at the University of Leeds. But this is a fine example, I think, of what you've heard this evening, of enthusiasm from government. David is still indirectly involved, and whilst we don't want to sort of lean on his support too much, because we need to be walking on our own 2 feet, but I hope that what you've heard tonight would suggest that government has a mind to consider helping us. And of course, we mustn't leave out in all of this the local enterprise partnerships, in Liverpool and in Leeds, must also the local authority in St Helens. We have Mike Palin, who's the chief executive of St Helens, and his colleagues, John Whaling from the Liverpool LEP, all, I have to say, delightfully in support. A few MPs from the area, and I can't see all of the MPs, but I know that we have. Well, oh, down there. No wonder, no wonder. Thank you. But really, as an industry, we hope that we have every chance of bringing together the glass industry with academia to innovate. And in an ideal world, we'd like to see ourselves developing new products going from literally TRL level 1 all the way through to market, TRL 9. And with the cooperation that we plan, we expect, and we're already seeing from universities and our industry, I think that we have a very good opportunity to get there. It does, however, require government support, because the industry isn't going to put its hands in its pocket without government support to match it. We are now about, I suppose, to start serious conversations with government to see to what extent they are enthusiastic as we are. Anyway, may I say thank you to all of you, to our speakers. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for coming. And now we're allowed to stay here for another half hour or so, and the food will probably come out the moment I've stopped speaking. So you probably want to encourage me to shut up. Anyway, thank you again very much for coming. Much appreciated.